Hello, this is Bernhard Ruchti, and this is another tempo Q&A video. Today's question is from a user called ODO, and they ask, on binary tempi, it is clear to me that the indicated tempo must be halved, but I don't understand how to behave with a ternary tempo. For example, this study, Opus 10 number 9 by Chopin, or Scherzo number 1, or the third movement of Beethoven's Sonata Les Adieux. What calculation is made in these cases? What is the ratio in ternary tempo? This is actually a very good question because it is a great opportunity not only to answer the question, but to discuss some basic aspects of likelihood or unlikelihood of the double beat option for metronome markings. So, what is the issue here? The issue is ternary bar structure and double beat. How does this go together? So in this example, you can see the problem. It is a ternary bar, a 3/4 bar, and if the whole bar is taken as one full beat, then this means that this full beat consists of two single beats or single ticks, single movements of the pendulum of the metronome. So we have a binary structure in the full beat versus a ternary structure in the time signature. You can see here the three crotchets or quarter notes and at the bottom line the two single beats which correspond to the audible ticks of the metronome. I will demonstrate this. So that's the metronome ticking. So the crotchets or quarter notes would go along to this like that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or at the piano. At first, of course, this is confusing because every second tick falls sort of in between two crotchets or quarter notes. And one might think, how could anyone ever attempt to count that way along to a ternary bar? Now, my thesis, generally speaking, about the double beat option is that in some cases, for instance for Beethoven, it could be that there is a relation between the option for double beat and the practice of conducting. In other words, people might have treated the metronome as if it was a conductor, resulting in a variable application of single beat and double beat depending on the movements a conductor would perform for the given note value of the metronome marking. I presented that thesis in my general introduction to metronome markings and tempo, so if you are unfamiliar with that idea, I recommend to watch that introduction. So therefore, let's observe how conductors treat a ternary bar. Depending on how fast the tempo is, it is a very natural thing that the conductor conducts one full beat for every bar. I will show you two short clips as an example for this. The first is from Johann Strauss's Voices of Spring Waltz, and conductor is Zygmunt Nitkiewicz. And you will actually see a beautiful execution of a full beat in the form of a round circle for every ternary bar. Let's watch that. So this is a round movement, so not an actual up and down beat. And of course, this movement matches beautifully with the character of a waltz. The second clip now shows a regular up and down beat for a ternary bar. It's the Minuet from Haydn Symphony number 94, the Surprise Symphony. And conductor now is Mariss Jansons. And you will see how he performs a regular binary up and down movement along with a ternary bar. It is important to realize that Jansons' movements do not really adapt to the ternary bar structure. In fact, if you switch off the sound, you can barely tell whether it is a binary or a ternary bar structure. Of course, I mean, Jansons is brilliant, so everything fits together perfectly, but this is double beat counting, double beat conducting for a ternary bar structure. As a side remark, in this context, it is actually interesting to see how Jansons changes his conducting for the trio. Since the tempo is slower, he passes on to conducting every single quarter note of the 3/4 bar. And if you observe his movements carefully, you will see how he actually performs a nice little full beat for each quarter note. Let's watch that as well. Now, if you look at these clips and these examples, is it really so unlikely to think that people such as Beethoven could have applied those conducting movements to the metronome? Those very conducting movements, actually, they were familiar with, unlike the metronome, which was new. Is it really that unlikely that people could have treated the movements of the pendulum of a metronome as if it represented the movements of a conductor? Now, let's look at the metronome again and come back to our example. For us, it is still confusing to have the metronome beat in double beat along to a ternary bar. I'll demonstrate that again. So that would be for the quarter notes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or at the piano. But things become already much less confusing when we move on to a silent metronome. Here it feels much more natural to play along a full beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or at the piano. And if we keep in mind that at the time when Beethoven indicated his metronome markings, he was already severely hearing impaired or even deaf, so he could not hear the ticks and basically had a silent metronome, then the option that he might have applied the metronome in such a way is really not that far-fetched in my opinion. Of course, and I can't point out that enough, whether or not he actually did it, that's another question. It's connected to some other aspects, for instance, tradition or his relationship with his pupils and things like that. But the option for double beat, the possibility for double beat, is there, in my opinion. This would mean that, for instance, for Beethoven's Hammerklavier Sonata, Opus 106, this could apply for the scherzo. That is a 3/4 bar, and the metronome marking refers to the dotted minim. That could correspond to the conducting movement we saw for the Haydn Minuet. Or the fugue of Opus 106, which is also a 3/4 bar, but now with a metronome marking that refers to the crotchet or quarter note. This could correspond to the conducting movement we saw for the Haydn trio. So the relation between a binary beat and a ternary bar structure that is confusing at first actually sheds an interesting light on the basic likelihood of double beat counting. Once again, whether or not this was actually applied is another question. It's not easy to actually assess this likelihood, since theoretically speaking, any metronome marking is neutral and can be both full beat or single beat. But the option for full beat or double beat, in my opinion, is worth serious consideration. And most importantly, there is now the voice of music itself that comes in. How would it sound if a composer did apply double beat for his metronome markings? And that is actually one of the main purposes of my a tempo project, at least of those parts that focus on metronome markings. I wanted to know how it would sound if the hypothesis of double beat was true. And for me, in my humble opinion, the result is really something. The Schumann Fantasy, for instance, works beautifully in that tempo. And particularly the most daring part of the a tempo project, the Chopin etudes, show such a richness and poetry all of a sudden that, in my opinion, it is a wonderful musical discovery regardless how one assesses the historical background of this. Okay, now to come back to the initial question that was about the calculation of a double beat along to a ternary time signature. That's very easy. Let's take the example of the scherzo of Beethoven's Hammerklavier Sonata. It's a 3/4 bar, and the metronome marking says dotted minim or dotted half note equals 80. So if that is double beat, that means that the full bar in single beat is 40, and there are 3 crotchets or quarter notes. So that means each quarter note in single beat would be 3 times 40, that is 120. Or if you want to calculate it directly, it's the note, the number of the metronome marking, that is 80 times 1.5, that is 120. So very easy. All right, so I hope this was helpful. If you have other questions you would like to learn more about, let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.